Senator Ted Stevens heads to court, and his Republican colleagues head for the hills. Our third story in the countdown tonight, while the scold of the religious right, Tony Perkins, openly worries about how this will hurt the GOP's attempt to claw its way back to respectability. His word, claw. Senator Stevens' lawyer, Brendan Sullivan, did the talking during today's brief arraignment in Washington, pleading not guilty for the senator on corruption charges. Stevens accused of concealing more than $250,000 worth of goods and services from Vico Corporation, 7 years worth. Sullivan requested a speedy trial. It might commence as early as September 24th so that Stevens could, quote, clear his name before the election. The senator was booked by U.S. Marshals, released on bail, his passport surrendered. Meantime, Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council, handily weaving Stevens into the bigger picture, writing in his newsletter yesterday, quote, as Republicans try to claw their way back to respectability before an election cycle, Stevens' debacle may do even more damage to the Republican brand. Trying to avoid bad branding, the presumptive Republican nominee donated to charity the $5,000 Mr. McCain had received from Northern Lights, Senator Stevens' Political Action Committee, and most of the GOP senators up for re-election have also donated Stevens' PAC money to various other charities. Let's turn now to Democratic strategist Chris Kofinis, former communications director for the presidential campaign of Senator John Edwards. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
A trial starting about September 24th. Did you suggest that to him, or somebody in the Obama campaign, or was this his own stroke of genius?
Actually, I suggested a trial that lasts many weeks and with a televised verdict right before the election. You have to wonder whether Stevens got a bunch of phone calls from Republicans after today's hearing where they asked him, which side are you on? I mean, this is getting, unbelievable. I mean, this is just another sad example of a self-centered politician that seems to put himself first instead of his party or the country. And it's unfortunate, but from my perspective, I'd say thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Well, but to that point, now Senator Craig, Senator Vitter, now Senator Stevens, only Senator Craig even briefly thought about resigning to help clear the issue of, a perception of Republican scandals aplenty off the table for his party. Is there any evidence of a sense of bigger purpose or even a little selflessness inside the Republicans?
It doesn't seem to exist. You would think that someone would want to take one for the team, especially if they remember what happened in 2006 when all the scandals, really hurt and devastated the Republican Party. You would think that someone would say, listen, it's time to go. It doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to almost be the opposite, where the Republican Party, from the halls of Congress to the White House, seems to be working pretty hard to prove the old axiom that, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It doesn't make sense, but it really is an indication of what the state the Republican Party is in.
The remark by Tony Perkins to say the GOP is still clawing, in the clawing phrase of restoring its brand. Once again, did you write that for him?
Well, the words I would use to describe the Republican brand have a lot more expletives involved. So my guess is, clawing was the family-friendly way of describing the state of the Republican Party. Let's be frank about it. This is a party with no ideas, no vision, no future electorally. They are going to suffer some serious losses come November. Even the Republicans, I think, understand that. And when you have Republicans like Newt Gingrich saying that the party needs to come up with ideas and a vision, you're in a pretty bad state of affairs. But their problem is they're not only facing, I think, political trouble, they're facing the wilderness. If they don't change and start, changing their ideas, they're going to suffer more than just political defeats in 2008. They're going to suffer, I think, a complete rebuke from the American people. And
as far as Senator McCain having to give the PAC money from Stevens to charity, why did he take PAC money from Stevens in the first place? This is anti-earmark McCain and Mr. Earmarks Ted Stevens.
Well, hypocrisy is becoming an increasing characteristic of John McCain and his campaign in 2008. It's kind of unfortunate. He's become a sad caricature of the candidate he was in 2000. As I say, the John McCain of 2000 wouldn't vote for the John McCain of 2008. He proves that every single day. But what this also does, I think, expose a really powerful angle of attack for not only Democrats but for the Obama campaign. This notion of John McCain as a maverick, as independent, it's a mythology. It does not exist. It's no longer true. And that, I think, is a very powerful angle of attack over the coming months. You prove the reality that John McCain is not the person he once was. His candidacy will crumble. And once that happens, this election is effectively done.
Chris Kofinis, former communications director of the Edwards campaign. Thank you as always, Chris.
Thanks, Keith.